Thank you for having me, actually. Apologies for not being physically there, but hopefully next year. So, as Desiree was saying, in fact, actually, many of the things that Yari has mentioned actually I will be repeating a little bit in a sense that the Eco Internet Index project that we work on actually tries to model that some of those concepts into a kind of measures. But before that, just quickly, I'm coming from Asia, and what Asia does, of course, is we operate a top-level domain. So instead of some domain.com, it's domain.asia, and that's where our income comes in. But Asia operates as a not-for-profit organization, and that's why we're engaged in some of these types of projects. And of course, basically all the income that comes into to Asia for domain registrations go back into supporting internet development and adoption around Asia Pacific. One of the projects that we're very excited to work on is the Net Mission project, which is the world's first youth engagement program on internet governance. In fact, we started in 2009, and it's still running, and that's one of the things. But back to today's topic, actually in 2016, when the Sustainable Development Goals were put into action by the United Nations, Asia worked on a project which we call the Agitora project. We picked the little tiger and looked at the Sustainable Development Goals, and we produced a project that talked about how the internet impacts the sustainable development and also the environment. And this is part of the program since 2016. In 2020, something, I guess, when the pandemic hit, one of the things that really became kind of came onto the headline news is how the internet is the carbon footprint of the internet is growing rapidly, especially with video and video conferencing. There is a narrative that talks about how how many trees you kill by watching Netflix and so on. So actually, Asia and APNIC at that time started working together to look at what the overall narrative should be, because obviously the internet, we don't think that the growth of the internet should be curtailed just because of some of the energy impact. But of course, as Yari mentioned, there is the good and the bad. We cannot lose sight of the bad either. But what is that balance, and what is the narrative that we should look at? So between 2021 and 2022, we worked with a group of advisors to look into the particular problem, to look at how do we model a kind of measure that is, again, it is not exactly calculating what the carbon footprint of the internet is, although that is one component. But also, what it replaces. So basically, we're looking at a narrative whereby, of course, we know as the internet grows, it consumes more energy. Of course, better technology that could be adjusted, but there is no hiding away that the internet, the infrastructure requires energy to support it. But what is it replacing, right? I mean, the physical footprint, it might, the thing that the internet networking is replacing might actually be more carbon heavy, approach to life. So how should we think about it? And especially, what the internet advantage is, and how do we weigh between the two? And that's really what ultimately we came to a multi-factor composite indicator based on three axes: economy axis, energy axis, and efficiency axes. And actually, Yari mentioned a lot about the importance of the energy that powers the internet. That is probably the most important thing. And the other thing is about the capacity, because as Yari's graph showed earlier, it goes up in a discrete manner, right? When you add capacity to it, it doesn't the energy requirement doesn't go linear. It actually jumps every time you add capacity to it. So that's part of considering the efficiency. I'm not going to go into the details of the actual model and formula, but instead I will let a little video explain to you a little how the composite indicator works.
Global carbon emissions bounced back after the pandemic to the highest level ever recorded, and the internet's carbon footprint is part of that growth. How should we think about the eco-friendliness of the network?
The Eco-Internet Index looks at 3 dimensions: economy, energy, and efficiency, linking and balancing between the positive aspects of digital transformation along with the negative draw on power consumption.
The economy axis looks into the Internet's relative carbon footprint against the displacement of old economy trade by the digital economy.
The energy axis zooms in on the carbon emission factor and renewable energy sources that power the Internet.
Finally, the efficiency axis considers connectivity speed against the excess capacity that is supporting the network.
Of the 14 Asia-Pacific jurisdictions studied this year, New Zealand and Japan came out on top. New Zealand had an early start, having built the first hydroelectric power plant in the southern hemisphere, dating way back to 1885.
Japan was one of the largest oil and coal consumers in the world as recently as 2019. But is now Asia's third largest producer of renewable energy. Both countries rely on sound policy intervention. New Zealand had a head start, and Japan turned things around with impressive digital transformation.
Together, we must work in a multi-stakeholder way with our industry and governments to make the Internet more eco-friendly.
To learn more, go to ecointernet.asia. Do more, waste less. Global.
Yeah, so that's the thing, and actually a lot of it is around the SDGs as well. It touches on various different things, as mentioned, from the economy side and different sides. I don't know why the video, the background music is not coming out. It's a little bit weird. That's a weird bug that I'm not sure why, but sorry about that. So overall, what we did was look at the different axes and the calculations. So the first rankings that came out for the Asia Pacific region, we launched it at the Kyoto IGF last year, and we're looking to continue to update it. But one of the things that is important is also what the narrative is. As Yari also mentioned, the awareness is important. So raising awareness is one thing. The other one important thing about the index again is that of course the ranking is fun to look at and so on, but it's more about a narrative to talk to people and talk to governments and policymakers to look into the issue. And one of the interesting areas is what kind of policy, how can we respond? Yari again mentioned a little bit. Now I'm going to show a couple of narrative discussion, points that based on the research and based on some of the numbers we're looking at, we're looking to talk a bit more.
Data traffic on the internet, like the subway.
I don't know where.
Data traffic on the internet, like the subway train system. Each byte of data, like a passenger, and the internet bandwidth, like the size of the train. If everyone takes the subway at the same time, we'll need bigger trains and increase the total number of trains that can be on the tracks at the same time. That is called the peak hour or peak usage. But if the same number of people travel at different times throughout the day, we only need smaller trains and also less number of trains at the same time and still get everyone to their destination. That way, we have a more efficient system which saves energy. Same for the internet. We better utilize the capacity of the network by moving it or spreading activities across non-peak hours of internet traffic. For example, data backup, video downloads, mass emailing, etc. You may think that changing only your internet may not have a big impact. Imagine if all the internet companies and your favorite apps and games become more carbon conscious. Together we can make a big difference. Internet has a carbon footprint too. Together we can do more with the internet and waste less by promoting more efficient use of network infrastructure.
Edmon, we're getting some
We can
scrambled
also use
noise.
more renewable energy sources too.
To learn more, go to ecointernet.asia.
So that's one part of it. And I'm going to show one more video. I don't know why the video is coming across a little bit strange, but hopefully you can get the gist of it. But another thing that we realize is that part of the policy narrative needs to also think about when we talk about expanding the network, extending to especially rural areas, sustainability actually can come hand in hand. And that's one of the things that we're looking at.
Japan is number 2 on the Eco-Internet Index 2023. Not only did Japan turn around its reliance on fossil fuels, it is tackling climate poverty at the same time.
And partnering with nations around Asia to decarbonize with clean and reliable energy, which helps eradicate poverty and drive economic growth.
Experts recognize that improving access to clean energy reduces poverty by increasing education and improving public health. World Bank says that solar-powered off-grid solutions are crucial to connecting the poorest and hardest to reach.
That means digital inclusion, which brings the education and economic benefits of the internet to even the remotest parts of the world, must be powered by clean energy.
Our friends at .uz are doing exactly that with the IT Village project. Instead of having mountain kids travel to the city, the IT Village brings the internet to the mountains in the Samarkand region of Uzbekistan, teaching school children media literacy and coding, providing youth essential skills to thrive in cyberspace.
What is more exciting is that the IT Village is powered by solar energy. Digital transformation and sustainable energy comes hand in hand. Perhaps that is why Japan is number 1 in digital economy, according to the EII data. To learn more, go to ecointernet.asia. Do more, waste less.
Right. So that's the type of the research that we're doing, and looking at some of the case studies as well, and trying to develop some narrative. The index itself looks at the eco-friendliness of the different jurisdictions based on certain indexes. Again, it's not a complete like a complete accurate description of the carbon footprint of the internet, but it looks at different indexes and look at the comparative difference. One final thing that I want to touch on before I close is in the coming year, we're besides looking at expanding the number of jurisdictions and countries that we're looking at. Currently, it's at 14. We're hoping to expand it to 20 or 25 in the Asia Pacific region. We're also looking for partners, actually, maybe to take the same model, the same formula, and apply it to Europe, apply it to Africa and other places, and see, and expand the study a little bit further so that we can have, a bit of a comparison. The last thing that I want to touch on in the coming year, actually, we're going to be focusing a little bit on this, is about a further case study on connectivity and also the what I guess related to some of the discussion you're having today, which is about data governance and data localization. So what we found is that our model slightly supports data localization, although we are revisiting some of that because, as you can see here, very interestingly, what we identified as part of the case study is that for New Zealand, which you see on the left, one of the challenges or one of the things that they that the study identified is that it actually has a lot of uses a lot of international bandwidth. And when we dig deeper, we saw that a lot of the services are actually provided by networks and systems in Australia. So whereas inside New Zealand, the renewable energy and all those kind of things for the network is actually quite good. One of the parts is about data. Actually, a lot of transit data is happening to Australia, and whether that's sustainable and whether that's good. Right now, I think we're undecided. The index itself slightly quote unquote punishes that behavior, but we understand that the internet needs to be global as well. So part of the work that we're looking at in terms of tweaking it is to how to think about that. So in the coming year, we're also looking for people who are interested to think through this problem with us. Because another very important aspect that we kind of support is that people a lot of times talk about data localization, and it really relates to digital sovereignty or national sovereignty, which is problematic because at Asia and a lot of the work that we do in terms of internet governance, we believe that more of a personal digital sovereignty is important. And how do we model that back into, and that relates a little bit to Yari mentioned, if we keep the data more radically local, not just to keep, data localization, often we talk about it in terms of localizing within a country or particular place. But what if it is localized all the way to the personal? Then the data transfer would be much less. In fact, that keeps the data transfer to the minimum, which is one of the things that we're interested in. So the transit shouldn't be an issue, but how do we add a component to look at or model how to minimize data is something that we're looking at in the next version of the index. With that, that's all I have. This is part of the work that we're doing, and hopefully this is interesting. And as mentioned, we're looking for collaborators, and we'll be excited to hear from you to see if we can work in other regions with the Eco Internet Index as well.